You haven't been Pee-wee Herman in a while. Have you ever thought about putting on the Pee-wee suit and being Pee-wee again? I just finished writing a story for a Pee-wee movie. Okay, the artist Paul Reubens, who created the popular character Pee-wee Herman, has died. People all over the world were happy and laughed for decades when they saw Reubens' unforgettable shows. The events that led to his death were kept secret for a long time before he died. Before we figure out why he died, though, it's important to remember the amazing journey of entertainment that made Reubens famous. Take a look at this comedian's life and work as we talk about his famous roles, his unique way of making people laugh, and the lasting effect he had on the entertainment world. Reubens' early years. Paul Reubens was born on August 27, 1952, in Peekskill, New York. He grew up in a Jewish home in Sarasota, Florida. His parents, Milton and Judy Rubenfeld, ran a lamp store. His mother was a teacher, and his father had been in the Royal Air Force of Great Britain and the U.S. Army Air Forces during World War II. After the war, he became one of the first pilots in the Israeli Air Force and fought in the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. He was one of 5 Jewish pilots who flew secret fighter planes against Arab troops. They were all Orthodox Jews. Reubens has 2 younger brothers. Luke trains dogs, and Abby is an attorney who is also on the board of the American Civil Liberties Union of Tennessee. Reubens had a wonderful childhood in Winona, New York. During the winter, he often went to Sarasota to see the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus. The lively atmosphere of the circus sparked his love of theater, which shaped his future plans. Watching reruns of I Love Lucy made him love comedy even more and motivated him to make other people laugh. Reubens asked his father to build a stage so that he and his brothers could put on plays when he was only 5 years old. Ahead of his time at Sarasota High School, Reubens was made head of the National Thespian Society, showing off his skills and commitment to the performing arts. Later, he took part in Northwestern University's summer program for talented high school students and worked with the Asolo Theater and players of Sarasota Theater in the area, acting in a number of plays. After graduating from high school, Reubens went to Plymouth State University for a short time before moving to Boston University. He was turned down by many performing schools, including the Juilliard School and Carnegie Mellon University, but he finally found his place at the California Institute of the Arts. When Reubens moved to California, he worked in restaurant kitchens and as a Fuller brush seller while he pursued his acting goals. But coming from a poor background didn't stop him from becoming famous. How to become famous? In the cool 1970s, Reubens, who was young and eager, started his career as a comedian. He performed at comedy clubs in his area, where his unique style of humor made people laugh out loud. He really made it big, though, when he got a part on the famous TV show The Gong Show. He wowed the crowd 4 times with Charlotte McGinnis, his comedy partner, as the dynamic pair known as the hilarious Betty and Eddie. Reubens joined the famous comedy group The Groundlings, which is based in the lively city of Los Angeles, in order to improve his funny skills. He went all in on comedy for 6 wonderful years, working with people like Bob McClurg, John Paragon, Susan Barnes, and the legendary Phil Hartman. Together, they came up with funny stuff that would make people laugh out loud. It was during a terrible improvisation practice in 1978 that Pee-wee Herman was created. Reubens was so creative that he came up with the idea of a man who wanted to be a comic but wasn't good at telling jokes. People watching him couldn't help but see through his funny front because they knew he would never be successful in comedy. A fellow groundling named Phil Hartman used his genius to help Reubens shape and improve the character, and John Paragon used his writing skills to bring Pee-wee's world to life. People said that Pee-wee was like well-known characters like Tintin and Pinocchio, but Reubens claimed that Pee-wee was completely original and came from a mix of ideas rather than a single source of inspiration. Also, don't forget Pee-wee's distinctive voice, which made its debut on stage in 1970 during Reubens' production of Life with Father. Reubens found the perfect voice for his likable but strange character by giving them one of the play's most annoying roles. That was not the end of his trip. He got a small but memorable part as a waiter in the epic movie The Blues Brothers in 1980. He had no idea that this was just the start of Pee-wee Herman's fame and his place in the hearts of millions of people around the world. For this character in Blues Brothers, Reubens' voice took on a cartoonish tone. Eventually, it changed into the famous Pee-wees. The name Pee-wee came from a small Pee-wee brand harp that Reubens loved as a child. The last name Herman was a tribute to a lively boy from his childhood. The small gray suit Pee-wee always wore was custom made for Gary Austin, the founder and director of the Groundlings, and he later gave it to Reubens. The red tie's history is still unknown. Reubens only remembered that someone gave him a little kid bow tie before a show. At the same time, Reubens had a memorable audition for Saturday Night Live in 1980 to 1981, where he was paired with comic Gilbert Gottfried. Reubens said that he couldn't hire either of them because they were both seen as the same kind of talent. He just knew in his heart that Gottfried would get the job, and he was right. Reubens told the San Francisco Chronicle that he thought the game was fixed in an interview. Because Gottfried knows one of the directors and is friends with them, Reubens was angry and upset, so he took a risky choice to borrow money and make his show in Los Angeles, featuring Pee-wee Herman, a character he had been working on for years. With the help of John Paragon, Phil Hartman, and Lynn Marie Stewart, among others, Reubens took his show to the Roxy Theater. The Pee-wee Herman show had a great 5-month run there, with shows at midnight for adults and weekly matinees for kids. Many people saw the show for the first time when HBO showed it in 1981 as part of their On Location series. Reubens has even played Pee-wee in films like Cheech and Chong's Next Movie 1980 and Cheech and Chong's Nice Dreams 1981, though his real name was Hamburger Dude. Pee-wee's show got good reviews and a growing fan base, even though he was called strange and thought he was the weirdest comedian around. He was a unique mix of silly and cool, old-fashioned and cutting edge. When Pee-wee became very famous, Reubens chose to stay out of the spotlight. He was very good at hiding who he really was. He chose to go to all of his public events and talks as Pee-wee. Reubens wanted to make it look like Pee-wee was a real person who was not himself. His parents were even called Honey Herman and Herman, so no one knew much about his personal life. In the 1980s, Reubens took many chances to show Pee-wee on Late Night with David Letterman, which drew in an even bigger audience. During this time, Reubens took a brand new show called The Pee-wee Herman Show on a nationwide tour. The show was a hit at well-known places like the Guthrie Theater in Minneapolis and Carolines in New York City. In 1984, it even had a successful performance at the famous Carnegie Hall. What came next gave Pee-wee a big break in his career, so it looks like fate liked him. The big move. Warner Brothers couldn't believe how popular the Pee-wee Herman show was. It was such a hit that they couldn't help but ask Reubens to work on another project. He was asked to write the story for a full-length Pee-wee Herman movie. Because he was such a creative genius, Reubens had a unique plan. He wanted to make a new version of Pollyanna, which was his all-time favorite movie. He threw himself into writing the story and gave it his whole heart. But in the middle of the process, something unexpected happened. Reubens saw something strange going on at Warner Brothers. It looked like everyone had a bike with them. This made Reubens think of a new idea, so he chose to start over with a new script and work with the talented Phil Hartman this time. As luck would have it, Reubens and the people who made Pee-wee's Big Adventure came across Tim Burton's amazing work. They were amazed by his works, especially Vincent, Frank, and Weenie, which he considered as his best. At that point, they knew they had found the right director for their movie. Burton's unique style and vision were just what they needed to bring Pee-wee Herman's story to life. So, the movie came together. It was about Pee-wee Herman going on an exciting trip across the country to find his stolen bike. People were looking forward to seeing the movie, and it did not let them down. It went on to be a huge hit at the box office, making an amazing $40,940,662 in the US alone. Even though it only cost $7 million, it was an amazing accomplishment. Pee-wee's Big Adventure got mixed reviews when it came out in 1985. Some people liked it because it was funny and quirky, while others didn't agree. But as time went on, a lot of people became really into the movie. It became a cult favorite that fans all over the world love. The CBS network came to Reubens with an idea for a cartoon show after Pee-wee's Big Adventure was a big hit, but it wasn't well accepted. CBS finally agreed to hire Reubens in 1986 to produce and direct Pee-wee's Playhouse, a live-action kids show. Each episode of the show cost $325,000, which is about the same as a primetime comedy. Reubens was free to be artistic, and CBS only asked for a few small changes over the years, along with Lawrence Fishburne and S. It started in New York City with Epitha Merkerson on board. Lying under the name Ellen Shaw, Cyndi Lauper sang the opening credits. Pee-wee's Playhouse was based on shows from the 1950s like The Rocky and Bullwinkle Show, The Mickey Mouse Club, Captain Kangaroo, and Howdy Doody. It was meant to be educational, fun, and artsy for kids. Even though it was made for kids, the show quickly got viewers who were both kids and adults. Reubens wanted Pee-wee to be a good example of a person, so he made a show with strong morals that taught kids about giving and receiving. He thought that kids liked the Playhouse because it was fun and colorful, and parents liked how it made them feel like they were back in the good old days. In 1986, Reubens gave his voice to the computer on the ship in the exciting adventure flight of the Navigator. Another year, Reubens showed off his singing skills. This time, it was as the pilot droid RX-24, also known as Captain Rex, in the exciting show Star Tours. People loved this ride at Disneyland, Disney MGM Studios, and even Disneyland Paris because it was set in the beloved Star Wars world. Reubens didn't stop there, though. He brought back Pee-wee Herman, his most famous character, for some fun cameos. First, he made a memorable movie turn-in Back to the Beach, where he brought his Pee-wee charm with him. Then, he made a special guest visit on the popular TV show Sesame Street and brought lots of joy to the audience. Fans of both Pee-wee and Sesame Street really enjoyed it. Pee-wee's Big Adventure was a huge hit, so Reubens and Paramount Pictures worked together to make a follow-up called Big Top Pee-wee. In this case, he worked on the writing with the great George McGrath, and the famous Randall Kleiser was in charge. Even though they worked hard, the movie didn't quite hit the same heights as the first one. It got mixed reviews, and it didn't do as well at the box office, making only $15 million. While this was going on, Pee-wee's Playhouse was a hit on TV. The Fun World of Pee-wee and His Bright Friends was shown on TV from September 13, 1986 to November 10, 1996. Reubens had agreed to do 2 more seasons after the third, but when CBS asked him about a possible 6th season, he changed his mind and chose to take a break. Because he played Pee-wee all the time, he was tired, and had been giving hints that his time as the likable figure would not last. He wanted to look into other ideas too. In the end, Reubens and the network agreed that the show would end after 5 seasons. In total, there were 45 shows and a cute Christmas special. An amazing 22 Emmy Awards were given to the show for its greatness, which shows how creative and talented the people were who made Pee-wee's Playhouse happen. But Pee-wee's life wasn't always easy. There were a lot of problems with him and legal battles that hurt his success. There are arguments and court cases. In July 1991, something strange happened in Sarasota, Florida, a busy city. It was a normal day until fate stepped in and put a shadow over Reubens, a famous actor. He had no idea that his trip to an infamous adult theater would end up putting him in trouble with the law. When Reubens was deeply engaged in a movie, all of a sudden, the theater was filled with police officers. As Reubens was getting ready to leave, a detective stopped him and 3 other people. The detective looked closely at the people's driver's cards because he wanted to know who they were. At that very moment, Reubens said, "I'm Pee-wee Herman," with a hint of mischief in his eyes. It was a name that millions of people knew, and it was a figure that many kids loved and who made them happy. To try to make things right, Reubens offered to do a benefit show for kids for the sheriff's office, as if to say, "Let me make up for this bad thing that happened." A neighborhood reporter heard about Reubens' arrest the next day. When the writer saw the name, it piqued his interest. The lawyer for Reubens saw a chance and made a suggestion to the Sarasota Herald-Tribune. In return for not telling the story, Reubens would offer the same benefit for children. It's interesting to note that this wasn't the first time Reubens had been in trouble with the police in this county. In 1971, he was charged with lingering and prowling near an adult theater. Those charges were dropped, so he wouldn't have to deal with any more court issues. Then in 1983, Reubens was arrested again, this time for having marijuana on him. He was lucky that the judgment was put on hold and that he was put on probation for 2 years. After being arrested not long ago, Reubens set out on a trip to find comfort and support from his family and friends. He went to Nashville to be with his sister and lawyer, who were there to comfort him. After some time, he got to New Jersey and went to the big house of his good friend Doris Duke to hide. During the next few months, he would spend time there thinking about what had happened and what he should do next. The arrest in 1991 got a lot of interest from the media, and Reubens' character Pee-wee Herman was made fun of on late-night talk shows. Because of this, Disney MGM Studios took down a video from its studio tour that showed Pee-wee talking about how voiceover tracks are made while toys were present. Some shops took Pee-wee toys off the shelves, but Reubens put out a statement denying the claims that were made against him. He finally pleaded no contest on November 7th, 1991. This meant that he would not be charged, but he would have to do 75 hours of community service. As part of his job, Reubens was in charge of making 2 anti-drug PCS and paying for them. Even though there was bad news about the arrest, many artists who knew Reubens, such as Cyndi Lauper, Annette Funicello, Ja Gabor, and Valeria Golino, spoke out in his defense. He was also backed by people who knew Reubens like S. Epitha Merkerson, Gary Panter, the stage designer for Pee-wee's Playhouse, and Randall Kleiser, the director of Big Top Pee-wee. After CBS canceled the reruns, Reubens fans held protests and picketed in Los Angeles, New York, and San Francisco to show their support. In addition, the TV news show A Current Affair did a Pee-wee telephone poll, and almost all of the people who answered were in favor of Reubens. Calling in to support him 9 times out of 10. Reubens didn't do any interviews or talk shows after being arrested, but he did play Pee-wee Herman at the 1991 MTV Video Music Awards on September 5th, where he asked the crowd, "Have you heard any good jokes lately?" and got a standing ovation. Reubens only played Pee-wee one more time, in 1992, when he was part of a tribute to Minnie Pearl on the Grand Ole Opry. In November 2002, Reubens found out that the cops had come to his house with a search warrant while David LaChapelle was making the music video for Elton John's This Train Don't Stop There Anymore. A witness gave the cops a tip about the pornography case involving actor Jeffrey Jones, and they followed it up. There were over 70. 000 pieces of kitsch memorabilia in the collection. The cops found 2 low-quality videotapes and many photos that the city attorney's office said were child pornography. Kelly Bush, who was representing Reubens at the time, said that this wasn't true and that the things were actually Rob Lowe's sex videotape and a collection of old kitsch pictures that were between 30 and 100 years old. After that, Reubens turned himself in to the Hollywood division of the Los Angeles Police Department, LAPD. He was charged with a misdemeanor for having obscene material that showed a child engaging in sexual behavior. The district attorney looked at Reubens' collection and computer but didn't think there was enough evidence to charge him with a crime. Though Rocky Delgadillo, the city attorney, officially filed charges against Reubens on the last day that the law allowed. A criminal defense lawyer from Hollywood named Blair Burke was hired by Reubens to defend him. In December, Reubens told his lawyer Burke that he was not guilty. In the end, in March 2004, the charges of child pornography were dropped after Reubens admitted to a smaller misdemeanor charge of obscenity. Reubens was given a life term as part of his punishment. Because he was found guilty, he was given a life sentence in jail and had to give the sheriff's office his address for 3 years. It was also against the law for him to be around children without the permission of their parent or legal guardian. Later, Reubens said that he was an avid collector of erotica, which included films, muscle magazines, and a large collection of mostly gay erotica from the past. This collection was mostly made up of photographs of young people who were not wearing clothes. In his defense, Reubens said that what the city attorney's office saw as pornography, he saw as harmless art. He thought that each person could have a different opinion about whether the memorabilia showed pornographic pictures or not. Reubens made it clear that the naked people in the pictures were not doing anything sexual. Reubens was a passionate collector who often bought large groups of items, and one of the people who bought old magazines from him said that he couldn't have known what was on every page of the magazines he bought. The dealer said that Reubens specifically asked for 1960s antique magazines and other material about fitness. He made it clear that he did not want any material with children in it. While the case was going on in court, Reubens spent 2 years in Sarasota, Florida, taking care of his dying father. His father sadly died in February 2004 after a long battle with cancer. Even though bad things happened to Pee-wee, he was not the type to give up quickly. Come back after you look into the law. When he was arrested in 1991, Reubens changed his lifestyle to be less public. He focused on writing and gathering things like fake food and lamps. It was already the end of Pee-wee's Playhouse when he was arrested. Reubens said he didn't want to go for a 6th season because the crew was too busy and the quality of the show was getting worse. Even though the show was very popular and had a lot of episodes, CBS chose on July 29, 1991, to end reruns. In 1993, Reubens started dating actress Debbie Mazar. Going to movie premieres with her helped him get over his sadness after being arrested. Mazar made it clear, though, that they never completed their relationship. In the middle of the 1990s, Reubens got acclaim for his recurring part on the TV show Murphy Brown. The role also got him an Emmy nomination for Outstanding Guest Actor in a Comedy Series, which was the only nomination that wasn't for Pee-wee. After that, Reubens started a new project for NBC called Meet the Muckles, which was based on the play You Can't Take It With You. Sadly, the show ran into a lot of problems while it was being made, and was finally thrown out because Reubens' ideas kept getting more complicated and expensive. Philip Rosenthal said that NBC's bad reaction was because Reubens was on a blacklist. By 1999, Reubens had done a lot of interviews and public appearances to promote the movie Mystery Men. In that year, he made an important performance on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. Besides that, he played a rapist and killer in Dwight Yoakam's Western movie South of Heaven, West of Hell. Reubens also had small roles in a number of different projects. He played Rick, a Citizens Patrol officer on the famous Comedy Central show Reno 911. This led to a small part in the 2007 movie Reno 911 Miami. He was in the music video for Raconteur's song Steady As She Goes that same year, where he played the bad guy in a funny soapbox car race. In 2007, at SF Sketchfest, a tribute to Reubens was given, and he talked about his work with Ben Fong Torres. He agreed to work with NBC on a sitcom called Area 57 about a passive-aggressive alien, but the show was not picked up for a second season. However, Reubens did appear on the famous NBC show 30 Rock, where he played an illegitimate Austrian prince that Tina Fey made up just for him. He also played Chuck LaFoon, a drunk reporter who had been through a lot, 3 times as a guest star on FX's show Dirt. Courtney Cox, a close friend and Dirt star, suggested Reubens for the part. Reubens was also in David Arquette's first movie as a director, The Tripper, which came out in 2007. He came back as Pee-wee Herman at Spike TV's Guys' Choice Awards in June 2007. It was his first time playing the part since 1992. In the 2009 episode of Batman the Brave and the Bold called Legends of the Dark Knight, Reubens did the character of Batmite. In January of that same year, Reubens hinted that talks were going on to bring back his stage show. In August, it was publicly announced that the Pee-wee Herman show would be back. Reubens talked about how excited he was to play Pee-wee again. He played a lot of different parts until 2023. Let's take a look at his awards and achievements, leaves and prizes. Reubens didn't think his figure was good for kids until the mid-1980s when he started to think more carefully about what Pee-wee should and shouldn't be linked to. He hired protection while in costume to make sure that kids would never see him smoking. He also turned down offers to market candy bars and other unhealthy foods. In 1999, he tried to bring out the sugar-free Ralston Purina Pee-wee Chow cereal, but it didn't make it because it didn't do well in a blind taste test. In 1989, Pee-wee got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He also started a popular Pee-wee franchise with toys, clothes, and other items that made over $25 million at their peak in 1988. Reubens also wrote a book in 1989 called Travels with Pee-wee as Pee-wee. Reruns of Playhouse were shown on CBS until July 1991 when Reubens was arrested and the last two reruns were taken off the lineup. In 1998, Fox Family Channel showed old episodes of the Playhouse for a short time. Early in July 2006, Cartoon Network started showing teaser ads for the show during its Adult Swim block. After that, it was revealed that the show's 45 original episodes would air every night from Monday to Thursday starting on that date. Every night, 1.5 million people watched Playhouse, one of the top 10 cult TV shows of all time. TV Guide named Playhouse in 2007. Several kids' TV stars, like Steve Burns of Blue's Clues and Stephen Hillenburg of SpongeBob SquarePants, got their ideas from Pee-wee Herman. These two DVD box sets came out in November 2004 and each had all 45 episodes of the Playhouse show. There were also 6 shows in these collections that had never been available on home video before. After buying the rights from Reubens on July 3, 2013, Shout Factory put out the whole series on Blu-ray on October 21, 2014. Digital remastering was used to improve the original 35mm film parts and audio tracks for the series. In the 1980s, Pee-wee's Glen plaid suits were thought to be silly, but since the late 1990s, they have made him a fashion hero. Well-known fashion houses and designers like Christopher Bailey, Ennio Capasa, Miuccia Prada, Victor and Rolf, and Tom Brown have made outfits that look like Pee-wee's, with short pants, high armholes, and tight cuts. Reubens also talked about his personal life and death and his plans for a museum that would show off the Playhouse sets and props he owned. Paul Reubens and Shandy Hefner were married for a while, but they split up. After that, he started dating Debbie Mazur for a long time. She is a skilled actress who has been in many films and TV shows, including Home Alone. Even though he has been married before and is dating Debbie Mazur, we don't know anything about his children or other family members. At this time, the public does not know any specifics about Paul Reubens' children. For the second time in his life, Reubens died on July 30th, 2023, at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles. He was 70 years old. He was fighting both myelogenous leukemia and advanced lung cancer at the time of his death. He had been diagnosed with both conditions 6 years before, but had kept them a secret. After he died, a statement that Reubens wrote was made public in which he thanked and loved his friends, fans, and followers. He talked about how grateful he was for all the love and respect he had gotten in his life. The body of Reubens was burned, and his ashes will be buried at Hollywood Forever Cemetery. People all over the world will always remember Pee-wee and how much he meant to them. Please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to see more.